uh, in the previous meeting, my previous speaker Mohit has spoken about the true nature of yourself. That is how we are affected by Rajas, Tamas, and the Satogun. And he also told us about the casual plane and also told us about the true existence. Okay, and this is what Sankhya Yoga is all about. In the second particular chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagwan is telling us something about the true nature of ourself, that is the true nature of the self. He's also telling us about the eternity and immortality of the soul. He also tells us about the death, and ultimately we have seen that he also dictates something called as a doctrine of disinterested action, which in Hindi we say that doctrine of Nishkama Karma. Having said all these things and having listened to the lecture of Mohit, what he had to say, I also told in the previous lecture that I was instantly I instantly uh, got got to I instantly remembered one of the things written by Adi Shankaracharya, which is called as the Brahma Jnana Valimala, and there he says that one who attains the Brahma, one who attains the true self-realization, actually becomes something called as asangu. Asang means unattached. Okay, so I would suggest that please go and see that particular uh, composition of Adi Shankaracharya, which says that asango aham, punha punha. He tries to re-establish it, and he says that who am I? He says that Satchidananda Rupo Aham. Okay, so this is how he starts by saying that asango ham, punha punha, Satchidananda Rupo aham, ayeva avyavaha. That is unattached I am, unattached I am, uh, unattached I am, and I am ever free from attachment of any kind, and I am the pure consciousness, or you can say existence, bliss. I am the very self, indestructible and ever unchanging. So this is how he says, and he goes on to say that Nitya Shuddha Vimuktoham, that is, I am eternal, I am pure in the sense I am free from the control of Maya. And then he says, Nirakaro Aham, that is, I am ever liberated, I am formless. And then he says that Bhumananda Sarupoham, that is, I am of the nature of the infinite bliss, I am indestructible, I am changeless, I am the very self, I am the very self, indestructible and changeless. So that is why I keep saying time and again that whenever this is what my particular standpoint is, that whenever we are going to study the second chapter, that is the Sankhya Yoga, it seems to be very, very difficult for the people who starts to engage in this particular discussion at the very first, because one has to be aware of the doctrine of what Advait Vedanta has to say. And that is why I keep saying, and that is why whenever Sankhya Yoga we have started, all those sessions we have started with Bhagwan Shiv's Strota and also Adi Shankaracharya's composition. That is one of the composition that we took in the previous times was Nirvana Shatakam. And today I just got memorized of this particular thing. We'll do it in the next session also. Okay. So let us begin from where I actually was actually speaking on. So in last particular sessions, we spoke about Karma Yoga, and that in particular previous, all the more previous sessions, we were doing Sankhya Yoga. And then we actually were actually discussing about something called as what is Sthitaprajña and what are the qualities of a Sthitaprajña. So that is what my previous speaker also told, that Arjuna was actually confronted, and he actually says that because everybody knows that Arjuna has taken a complete Sharnagati of the Lord himself, and he says that, oh Lord, please do tell me, how do enlightened persons behave? How do they conduct their daily activities? How do they see themselves in everything and everything in themselves? How does that equanimity comes in within them? So answer that Lord has given is one, that one has to give up the desires. What extra thing would you see as an attribute of a Sthitprajña? One is called as equanimity. This is something that we have discussed. Another thing is about Indriya Nigraha and Mano Nigraha, that one who has the complete control of his senses, like and he Shri Krishna goes on to give an example of a tortoise, and then he says that one who becomes a Rishikesha. Rishikesha is name of the Lord himself. But understand, Rishikesha here means who has the complete control of his senses. So this is what he says about the attributes of the what you can say attributes of the Sthitaprajña, and this is where I ended in the last discussion of the Sthitaprajña. And today I'm going to continue from here on. I hope that any of the things that I say, if they don't make sense and if they seems contradictory to you, I'm open to all those discussions. So here the question is that Arjun, like we all know that Bhagavad Gita is that river text which is going to take us to this liberation. Okay, but what if I don't read Bhagavad Gita? What if I just follow the desires of the sensory pleasures? Okay, and what if I don't follow a spiritual path? Okay, the world seems very good and fine. Everything is around us. Material desires are there. But understand what Mohit had to say in the previous lecture, that we are all afflicted by the three taps. Three tap, that is Adidevic, Adipathic, and Adhyatmic. These are the three tap that we are actually are always confronted upon in this particular material world. And then we always try to seek an answer from the materialistic point of view. And what Sankhya Karika, one of the oldest texts of Hinduism, says that says that all these if you want to get an answer beyond spirituality, which is not spiritual answer, which is a material answer, it is not going to yield you a permanent solution. It is not going to yield you a permanent solution. So this is we have to move towards the spiritual answers. Okay, so our question arises that what if I don't follow the spiritual path, and what Lord has to say? This is that particular shloka. Before that, let us understand. So we all understand that if we don't follow the spiritual path, if we are only engrossed in the material desires, what are we actually right now into? We are into a muddle of wars, unnecessary lust, greed, selfishness. People are attacking one another for no reasons, and we can see that all around there are unstoppable wars that are going because of the desires that are material needs and everything. And the sense gratification, the sensory gratification, has become the primary objective of people's life, and which is actually not making them even behave humanly. Okay, we are witnessing corruption, we are witnessing unnecessary wars. As I told, we are having unchecked egos, we are having narcissism in the society, and all sort of conflicts have plundered our existence. And all this is not new, mind you. Okay, so this has been going since eternity, and at least since Kali Yuga has started, at least we can say that. And this is why we have to become serious about the spiritual practice. And what Lord has to say in this is what he has to say. What he says is, Shri Krishna explains that how a constant focus on the sensory pleasure is going to take us on the path of self-destruction. And he elaborates it using this 62nd verse and the 63rd verse. And he goes on to say that Dhyato Vishyan Punsah Sangate Teshu Upjayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha Kamata Krodhata Vijayate. Means what he says that if you are having a constant focus on the sensory pleasures, if you are having the what is happening? Am I audible or not audible?
Yes, audible.
Yes. Okay, and it's fine. So what he says that if you are going to have a constant focus on the senses, sensory pleasures, and if we develop an attachment to them, this attachment is going to lead us to a desire. And when desires are unfulfilled, it is going to give us anger. If you go to any Santa in India and ask him what is the cause of the anger, and even if you ask yourself what is the cause of anger, one would say, तुम्हारी कोई कामना अपूर्णित रही है ना? क्रोध का कारण क्या है? कोई भी कामना अपूर्णित जब रहती है तो हमें क्रोध आता है, राइट? सो the root cause of anger is also the non-fulfillment of the desire. And once anger clouds you, it is going to create a lot amount of confusion. That is what Lord is saying in this particular 62nd verse. Okay, this is what we are doing. Understand, we have already done what are the attributes of Sthitaprajña. Now we are doing that. What if I don't be a Sthitaprajña? What if I don't follow the path of spirituality? What if I just remain completely engrossed in the materialistic pursuits? What is going to happen? Because after all, if you're going to remain in the constant pursuit of the material desires, one will develop attachment to luxuries, one will have attachment to the relationships, and these relationships or these attachments are going to give us nothing but desire, and when these desires are unfulfilled, it is going to give us anger, and when anger will come, it will cloud the judgment and create confusion. This is what has to say and understand. This state of confusion is going to take you to the path of self-destruction. This is what Lord says in the second 63rd verse. He says that when anger clouds the judgment and creates confusion, this confusion is going to create your intellect. It is going to make your intellect murkier, and eventually you're going to destroy yourself. This is a very simple thing that our Lord has told you. Accept it, not accept it, entirely your will. The point is this: Lord has clearly said this, that krodha bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhranshat buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat pranashyati. Means he wants to say that anger leads to the clouding of judgment, which results in the bewilderment of the memory. And when memory is bewildered, the intellect gets destroyed, and the intellect gets destroyed, one is ruined. If anybody of you has seen death of any of your closest relative, I have seen twice or thrice at least. What we actually say that, let's say if somebody is approaching death, let's say my grandmother was approaching death. Okay, my mother also approached death due to cancer. But the point is this: I could clearly see, we say that the patient has entered into a delirium. This is what doctors say. Delirium means what? Patient has entered into a state of delirium. He would say anything. So in spirituality would say that buddhi nasho has happened. Once buddhi nash happens, nothing can save you. Okay, so the point is this. This is what we say in the local terminology. People go and either put the person who is approaching death under the people tree. This is what happens in our villages. If you don't do so, we actually put him into the below the bed. So basically, we make him lay on the floor. We say that sannapat has occurred to them. Sannapat means he has lost the control of his mind. Okay, so this is the when the loss of control of mind happens, it is closer to the death. Basically, it is closer to the death. This is how death approaches. Okay, this is how death approaches. If it's not an akala mrityu, I'm saying, but this is how death approaches. So please understand. Again, I'm repeating: krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhrama, smriti bhranshat buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat pranashyati. Means, in short, if you want to see what is the path of self-destruction, it is going to start from the 62nd verse. The Lord says that keep a constant focus on the sensory pleasure. You are going to get attached to them. Once you attach to them, desire will perpetrate. Once desire will perpetrate, unfulfilled desire is going to lead you to anger. Anger would lead to confusion, illusions, and it is going to cloud you with the wrong judgment, wrong decision, and that is self-destruction. I gave you an example of the death approaching. Whenever death approaches, buddhi nasha happens. This is something that is very natural. If you have seen in your relatives, you'll be able to understand. So the point is this: in short, we know that this is how things are. So basically, the condition becomes fivefold verse. It's not only that we are going to have a single fold; it is going to become fivefold, because our senses are five-folded, and we want to drag ourselves in different directions according to our senses. Okay, so let's say even when we see that there are people who don't have any criminal records, they end up committing crimes. Why? Only because of one sense. Only because of one sense, they could not stop for a moment of uncontrolled desire and anger, and they create a crime. Okay, they do perform a crime. So basically, one has to understand that satisfying senses can never make us happy. Okay, sensory pleasure can only last a few moments, and this is the quality of a Sthitaprajña who has this kind of control, that okay, I'm not going to get driven away with the senses. Again, what is an answer to this? If you go and ask Adi Shankaracharya, he would say that the understanding of the true self. Okay, and if you go to a Vaishnav Sant like Madhvacharya or probably Vallabhacharya, they are going to say that do a Sharnagati of Lord. After all, the answer is Advait. Even after having the Sharnagati of Lord, you are becoming one with the Lord himself. So basically, becoming Lord with oneself, either through the Bhakti Marga or through the Gyan Marga as propounded by Adi Shankaracharya. Whichever mark suits you, the answer to every of your question is Advait. Okay, one has to understand that sensory pleasure would last for only a few minutes, and beyond that, it is going to leave you dry, and you will be wanting more. Okay, and this is why we are seeing in this entire world, because of the desire, rise in desire, there are a rise of you can say the suicides in Kota or whatever practical life situations we can see right now is happening. Probably teens are adapting themselves to intoxication. They are committing all sort of drugs. All these things are you can see that there is an exponential rise to all these things, right? And what it is going to lead us? It is going to lead us to a life which is of no use. Okay. So basically, it is like we are being pulled by a chariot. We are into a chariot pulled by maverick horses. Basically, horses have lost their control, and we are being pulled by that particular chariot. That's exactly what our lives have become. That is the reason why we find ourselves lost, as we have outsourced the direction of our lives to the most unreliable of the horses. We are sitting on the chariots with the most unreliable horses, that is our senses. Do we really want to live like that? Think about it. And this is what Lord says in 64th and 65, that if you don't really want to live like this, what are the ways? And if you apply them in your life, if you're going to put it in your life, the life is going to become a certain blessing. And really, why does it not happen for us? Because we actually don't prioritize spirituality in our life. Really, we actually are prioritizing all sort of material things. I'm not saying don't pursue them, but actually don't attach yourself with them, because as told by my previous speaker, it is the prarabdha karma which is going to give you all these things, which is also iterated in Ramacharitmanas. Yash apyash labh hani, janam mrityu sab vidhi ke haath. This is what Ramcharitmanas had to say. Goswami ji Tulsidas had to say, Yash, Apyash, Labh, Hani, Janam, Mrityu, Sab Vidhi ke haath. Means it is not in your hands. When it is not in your hands, what is in your hand? Whatever is in hand is karma. Understand that whatever result you are going to get out of karma, that is not in your control. When it is not going in your control, why you are putting your entire effort, energy into that? So please prioritize spirituality in your lives. And again, I'm so big a fan of this particular statement. This was written by some very French philosopher, and she says that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience. So understand that we are spiritual beings. Unless we don't realize ourselves as the embodied self, inside the real self exists, that real self is the Ananda himself, that is the Satchidananda himself. If we are not going to attain that, we are never going to attain happiness in our life. Okay, this entire worldly affair that we are running out about, the entire materialistic pursuits that we are doing right now, is for the cause of happiness. And can we ask ourselves for a minute, stop for a minute and ask ourselves that are we really getting happiness? The answer would be certainly no. We are not getting happiness. Okay, in one of the sessions, Mohit also asked that if somebody asks you what is the biggest pleasure that you've got in your life, and if you try to remember, you cannot remember. And he told that you're going to end up giving a random answer to that particular query. And probably another day somebody asks you what is the biggest pleasure that you got in your life, you will say something different, because you don't register that memory, right? Because these sensory pleasure are just transient emotions. They're going to come and go. They are not sat in what Vedantic doctrine would say. They are asat. Okay, so basically here I'm again focusing on the largest context of discussion is that why have we got this human birth? And Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa says the goal of human life is God realization and nothing else. Okay, whatever you're doing, you're getting into IITs, you're doing good research, fine, good enough. But point is this is not the goal of human life. The goal of human life is to realize the mighty, realize the God himself, realize the Brahma, if you say in the term of the Advaita Vedanta. And this brings us to another question, that why spiritually elevated beings have no issue in containing their minds, their senses, or giving up desires, because they really, really want to achieve that self-realization. And why we struggle? Because we don't have this on our priority list. If we could move up in the priority list, spirituality, it will become our second nature. What will become our second nature? Our second nature would become Indriya Nigraha or Mano Nigraha or equanimity, Samatvam, or trying to become a Rishikesha. That is, this will become our second nature, and it will become an effortless and automatic behavior. And if we get our priorities sorted, we will reach. We can think of reaching with a rapid progress towards the spiritual path. and where our life will become joy, where our life will become blessing. Okay, and Sri Krishna calls this state of joy, bliss, and peace a life living with God's grace or prasada. And he goes on to say, Raga Dvesha Viyuktestu Vishayanindriyascharan Atma Vashar Vidheyatma Prasadam Adhigachati. Means anyone who can control the mind and senses become free of their likes and dislikes, even while using them. So he becomes unattached. He becomes unattached to what? Raga Dvesha. Okay. Who becomes unattached to Raga Dvesha? Who can have the complete control of his senses and mind? One who has become Sthitaprajña. This is what we are discussing, right? With such a freedom, the life becomes a blessing. The life becomes a God's grace. The life becomes what we say in our Hindi, prasada. Okay. This freedom also frees us from all the sorrows in the life, as we are no longer chasing the, you can say, worldly pleasures. And most of the sorrows, you should understand that most of the sorrows that we are having in our lives is our own making, as we are afraid of losing what we have and not getting what we want. What we actually want, means what we means the real self. What real self wants? The real self wants ananda. I always say it in a philosophical context, and this is kind of my own thought. You can say, I will not say that this is my own thought in the sense that I have been motivated into this thought. I always say that what are we? We are nothing but a kite which has been cut from the मांझा. हम लोग एक पतंग है. अब हमें पता नहीं हम कहाँ जा रहे हैं. बेसिकली हम वो पतंग है जो मांझा जिसने मांझा पकड़ रखा था ना, उसने काट दिया. अब हमें एक ढूंढना है हमारा अस्तित्व क्या है. So the point is this: कि we have to understand our own real self, and in order to get this, this is what Lord has propounded. Okay, so most of our sorrows in our life is our own making, and we are worried about losing what we have and not getting what we want. What we want ananda, the bliss. The bliss is by attaining, by understanding that we are nothing but we are Sat Chit Ananda. Okay, but with such freedom, all these sorrows disappear. If we attain this freedom, what freedom? This particular freedom of getting trapped by the senses. If we get the freedom of getting trapped by the senses, our sorrows will disappear, giving us tranquility and peace. This is what Lord has to say in the 65 verse, and he goes on to say that prasade sarva dukkhanam hanira upajayate prasanna chetaso rashu buddhiya parivatishtate. Means the divine grace frees from all sorrows and leads them to tranquility. With this, soon they become stable in their knowledge, and one would become Sthitaprajña. Okay, purity of self means if I am not controlled by my senses, if I'm not controlled by my desires, if I am in that state of freedom, this is what Lord Krishna had to say. If I am in that particular state of bliss, okay, then with that particular internal purity, one would develop steady wisdom. Steady wisdom means I'll become a Sthitaprajña and I'll become clear and I'll have an unclouded intelligence. Now, one would understand that what is the nature of a true spiritual entity. Okay, so a true spiritual entity is always alert about the true goal of his or her own life. Okay, the true goal of his or her own life would be to attain the spiritual realization. Okay, that is the truest emotion that one has to carry inside. I should not even say emotion. That is the truest goal one should think about. Okay, so this happens to us quite many times. Let's say I am right now we are all discussing Bhagavad Gita. So right now we are disciplined. We are into a sense that we have to sit, we have to bathe properly, and then we have to sit with the Bhagavad Gita. We have to read all commentaries that we can do. So right now we are in that particular state. As we are going to deviate from this particular state, we are going to get into some different scenarios. And all over again, the spirituality is going to get a lower place in our priority list. This particular thing happens in complete weekdays, as we can say. As Monday approaches, we think that we are going to read Bhagavad Gita, but eventually it is like Friday, Saturday, we actually start up reading, oh, today we have to do so and so amount of shlokas. So basically, this is how we do. So spirituality again becomes one of the down thing in our priority list. So one has to understand that we cannot lower our guard. We have to stop paying attention to our senses. We have to keep a strict vigil over them. Okay, we have to keep a strict vigil to them. We cannot let them play with us. And this is what happens. And this will come after a lot amount of practice. And Vairagya, this is again being told in the further verses in Bhagavad Gita itself, that only by Vairagya, only by Abhyasa, one is going to attain the Virakti. It is not that easy, but we can do some sort of effort. Okay. So now we have all the five senses plus the mind, and the world is full of temptations. And so even if one of the senses become vulnerable, when we lower our guards in, you can say, overconfidence, they take us over completely. So this is what Lord has said, and we'll have to keep a constant vigil. And even if we think that okay, we are in a complete control, then also something can deter us. This has been told by again Bhagwan Krishna in 60 or 61st verse, that even a single thing can deter you. Even a single thing can deter the yogis of the highest you can say category. So if we are going to fail to our sensory pleasures time and again, we will never be able to focus on the spiritual path. And this is what Lord Krishna had to say in the next two shlokas. That is the shlok number, I think, 66 and 67. He says that an undisciplined person who lets their mind and senses take over finds it difficult to develop the resolve to reach the self-realization. And without self-realization, there is no peace. And when there is no peace, there is no happiness. This is what Lord has to say in the 66th verse. He says that नास्ति बुद्धिर्युक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चा भावयत शांतिरस्य शांतिरः शांतयस्य कुतः सुखम. Means without self-realization, there is no peace, and when there is no peace, there is no happiness. And he takes an example of boat, and boats need someone to watch on, right? And since we know that boat, if it is steered in, if it is in the ocean is so full of uncertainties. So ocean is so unpredictable, so one has to steer it. Due to strong winds, even if somebody does a single negligence, the boat is going to drown, or boat is going to get drowned, or probably get steered off the course. So in the same way, we have to keep a constant vigil. This is what Lord Krishna had to say. And he says that just as the strong wind can make a boat go off its planned course on the water, lowering guard, even one of the senses, can make our spiritual journey go astray. Okay. And on the contrary, those who don't lower the guard and keep a constant vigil, along with improving resolve, knowledge, and various spiritual practices, they can make rapid progress and reach the final destination. This is what Lord has to say. And he says that Indriyanam hi chartama yanmana anuvidhiyate tatasya harati pragyama vayu navama iva ambhasi. Means just as strong wind sweeps a boat off its charted course on the water, even one of the senses on which the mind focuses can lead the intellect astray. Now, one of another important shlokas of in this particular theme, that is Sthitaprajña. Now here, what Lord says, Lord is actually now comparing what an ordinary man is and what a spiritual man is. So we actually started with the question of Arjuna, where he asked about the qualities of an enlightened being, okay, and quality of Sthitaprajña. And he says, Krishna says that enlightened person stays in stability. He is equanimous. That is, again, he is one who believes in sukhe dukhe samay kritva labha labho jaya jayo. That is, he remains samatva in all the dualities of the life. Okay. One who has achieved this thing like Samatvam Yoga, there is one of the verses, 48 verse, I actually forgot what it had to say, but the point is this: one who attains the equanimous behavior, sorry, just give me a minute. Okay, one who attains the equanimous behavior becomes a spiritually enlightened person. So at the highest level, an enlightened person can stable in a particular state of permanence, and by giving up the desire, he can lead to self-realization. Okay. So basically, what do these people do? It does not happen that they do not get difficult circumstances in their life. For example, if you see one of the most spiritual beings right now, probably in the past 2 decades or 3 decades, if you see, or probably 50 years back, if you see Ramana Maharshi, you see Ramakrishna Paramahans, probably you can see even Swami Vivekananda, and even there are people who have been who've got cancer, who've got difficult circumstances in their life, but they were undeterred. They were undeterred. Okay, they were undeterred. Only they think that these are all circumstances and these are the outcome of the prarabdha karma. So instead of focusing on circumstances, they focus their energies on the spiritual progress. And this approach also helps while interacting with the others. And they are those people who show compassion and love without any possessiveness. This is what Neem Karoli Baba had to say. So basically, when Ramdas goes there, he says that I can only feel bliss, nothing else. I can only feel an eternal love, because he can, this is how great souls are. So basically, one control their senses by being vigilant, and they stay away from any temptation as much as possible. And because of their relentless focus on their spiritual progress, they attain enlightenment. And Sri Krishna actually tries to develop an analogy of day and night to explain the difference between the enlightened being and the ordinary people like we people are right now. Okay, and he says that ya nisha sarva bhutanam tasyam jagrati sanyami yasyam jagrati bhutani sanisha pashyato mune. Means what everyone considers the day is the night of the enlightened one, and what everyone sees as night is the day for them. So what exactly night and day means here? What exactly night and day means here? So for example, we are all those ordinary people, okay, focused on jobs, earning money, fame, prestige, valuable possessions, savings, comforts, whatsoever you can say, good life, filling up our loans or whatever. So our only time is about enjoyment and recreation. Basically, even if we do some pujas, we are doing it for certain, you can say, benefit of our own, and we are only focused on the material pursuit. And Sri Krishna uses the term day and night to explain this. He says that daytime, all people like us are completely focused, and at night, we are not completely focused. So basically, being focused on material pursuits and not being and actually night means not being focused at the spiritual pursuits. So all the above material pursuits are day for us, but for an enlightened person, these material pursuits are nothing but as comparable as night, nisha. Okay, they are not running behind them. By the way, it does not mean that they don't have or they don't get material things. They have accepted the fact that whatever material things that they are going to get, that is only an outcome of the prarabdha karma, and that no longer remains the focus of their life. They keep acting by not getting attached as dictated by the doctrine of nishkam karma. Their focus is enlightenment, and that is why spirituality is a day for them. Okay, I hope I have explained this thing. Now, what happens if one stays in this particular thing for long? Um, he's going to achieve perpetual peace. So we feel that we are incomplete, and to complete ourselves, we look to collect things from outside. We collect people, possessions, respect, and everything. It leaves us eventually in a perpetual state of turbulence with no peace. In fact, it gets so bad that even if we sit in meditation, even for a few minutes, we cannot sit, and we get distracted by the thoughts or worries of attaining something that gives us pleasure. Without peace, there is no happiness. This is what Lord has to say. We all have already witnessed this particular thing in our life, that without peace, we cannot be happy, even if we have good amount of money, then also. So this particular state of turbulence is right now in everybody's state of life, every walk of life, you can see that. And enlightened person understands this particular fact from very initial, and they have realized that they are already complete, and happiness is their core. That is, ananda is their core. And so instead of looking outside, they look inside, pratyahara, and they find that their true identity is the Brahma itself. Okay. And when one finds the true identity, they no longer get impacted by outside things. They continue to interact with others, and they fulfill although they fulfill their responsibilities, that is not the case. But even if they are fulfilling their responsibilities, whatever interactions that they make while fulfilling their responsibilities, they are neither the source of discontent nor the source of happiness. This is what Lord has to say in this particular shloka. He says that, taking an example of the calmness of the ocean, even when the gushing river water is merging into it. Okay. So he says that apuryanam achala samudram apa pravishanti yaduta tatvata yam tatvatam tam kama pravishanti sarve saha shantim aprunnati na kama kami. So basically, excuse me for this thing. He says that just as the ocean remains undisturbed by incessant flow of the rivers, from rivers merging into it, likewise the sage who is unmoved despite the flow of the desirable objects all around him, attains peace, and not the person who strives to satisfy the desire. So basically, what is a spiritual being? He's a being who is like sea, who is undeterred, unaffected by in his incessant flow of the waters coming into him. And now what Lord has to say, that even with the gushing rivers merging, ocean remains silent. In the same way, enlightened person also remains silent, also remains at a constant peace with all different difficult situations in his life. And they achieve this kind of calmness because they have given all the worldly desires. Giving up all the desires also cleans oneself from the greed, ownership, and the material ego. And that is what Lord Krishna had to say in the 71st verse, which is Vihayaya Kamanyah Sarva Pumansha Saraswati Nispriha Nirmamo Nirankara Shanti Migachati. Means they give up all the worldly desires and thereby become free of greed, ownership, and egoism, and they've attained the perfect peace. And this is how you're going to get the liberation. I hope I'll have to continue it in the next session. If you can keep up with me in the next session for 10 minutes, that would be fruitful. Is that fine? I'm the only one who's speaking right now. Okay. So I'll continue it in the last session. Okay, so that would be good. Okay, thank you so much.